Can you imagine how good it would feel to have people looking for you? To have organizations, foundations, funders, investors looking for you to give you money instead of you being one of the millions looking for them. That is what building your influence looks like. That's the ROI of influence. This is Pitch Your Nonprofit Pop-Up. You guys are definitely familiar with Pitch Your Nonprofit Show. And Pitch Your Nonprofit Show is the #1 nonprofit show on Clubhouse where we have funded founders directly from the stage. We have funded founders over $250,000 in funding for Pitch Your Nonprofit Show. And Pitch Your Nonprofit Show is the Shark Tank of nonprofits. It's where nonprofit founders can come to learn to pitch and not only learn to pitch. It's really awesome because not only do myself and the sharks that come on Pitch Nonprofit Show really work with them on the strategy for pitching, it is the opportunity to get funded. So that's really, really exciting on Pitch Nonprofit Show. Today we're doing a Pitch Nonprofit pop-up. And if you guys have been following the space, make sure you hit that little green button at the top to stay connected with everything that comes out of the Nonprofit Founders Club. And Pitch Nonprofit Pop-Up is a bit different. It is not an opportunity to pitch for cash like we do on the show, because on the show, we're actually pitching for cash, fundraising, and really, really honing in on the process and framework of pitching. This is an opportunity at Pitch Nonprofit Pop-Up. This is an opportunity to get direct coaching and consulting and your questions answered for your specific nonprofit. Oh my God, yes, you can get that. You have that opportunity that is available to you. And the thing that I really, really love about that is we don't do that on Pitch Nonprofit Show. If you have listened to Pitch Nonprofit Show, been a part of Pitch Nonprofit Show, again, Pitch Nonprofit Show has been around for a while, since Clubhouse actually, been around for a while, and that's why we're the #1 nonprofit show on Clubhouse, because we fund founders, we fund nonprofit founders, and it's just been such an amazing experience. But one thing about Pitch Your Nonprofit Show is you do not get the opportunity to ask any sort of questions. It is like once you hit that stage, once you get ready to go, it is go time. It is pitch time. The curtains are up. The curtains come up, and you have to be ready to go and ready to pitch. This is a different variation of that show because we want to help you as nonprofit founders move your nonprofit to the next level. I'm Liberty Madison, your host of Pitch Your Nonprofit Show and also the founder of Pitch Your Nonprofit Show. And my expertise, as you know, I do not have a nonprofit organization. I come from the tech world. I come from the Silicon Valley tech world. And one thing that I noticed while working with nonprofit founders is that nonprofit founders don't pitch like tech founders. Oh my gosh, it is true. And I don't know why that is. So with Pitch Your Nonprofit Show, we help nonprofit founders pitch like tech founders and help them secure funding and help them really, really get that visibility that they need. So one thing that we do at Pitch Your Nonprofit Show and at Pitch Your Nonprofit Pop-Up is we don't focus on the structure, the organizational tools of establishing a nonprofit or a 501c3 organization. We focus specifically on visibility, funding, and what you can do to actually raise funds. If you listen to previous episodes of Pitch Your Nonprofit Pop-Up, we have people that come to the table with specific questions. So I want to give you the opportunity to go ahead and raise your hand and give you an opportunity to raise your hand to come to the stage. And what does that look like? That looks like you need to be a nonprofit founder. And shout out to you guys who are aspiring to be nonprofit founders. I salute you, but I'm going to salute you from afar because I want to have this space for people that are in the nonprofit space and out here in the trenches and really need some support. And that is what the pop-up is for. The pop-up is 1 hour. It will end at 7. So raise your hand if you have a question. And let me give you an idea of the kind of questions that we're looking for. Thank you so much, Sandy. I appreciate that message. Thank you so much. And let me give you an idea of the kind of things that I'm looking for in this Pitch Your Nonprofit pop-up. In this pop-up, I want you to come to the stage and say, hey, I have a question about ABC XYZ. The last pop-up we did was really exciting because we had a founder who had an event coming up and she wasn't really sure what to do. And she wasn't really sure how to maximize and leverage the space that she had and really increase her funding efforts. And we were able to go over some things and she was completely blown away. So that's what I want for you guys too. I want you to come up to the stage. Feel free. Hey, not, not, am I pronouncing this right? Natisha? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Hey. Thank you so much. So that's what I'm looking for, guys. And if you are a nonprofit founder, I would love for you to come up and just express maybe some challenges that you have or get some second thoughts or second opinions. That's what the pop-up is for. So now you have the space, for the next hour to kind of buckle in, well, the next 55 minutes to kind of buckle in and say, hey, I'm a nonprofit founder. I want to do XYZ and I'm having a challenge in that way. If it's pertaining to visibility or funding or anything in that realm. And one of the things that you guys know from Pitch Your Nonprofit, we don't focus on grant funding. We focus specifically on, no, let me back that up. I don't want to demonize grants. I think grants are amazing. But the reason that we don't focus on grants is there's so many opportunities that nonprofit founders overlook because they are looking at their business in a different way. I really focus on getting you to look at your nonprofit as a startup, as a business. The only difference between your business and someone else's business is not the business itself. It's just simply your 501c3 is a tax election, but everything else is pretty much the same. You got to get out here and market and get that visibility. We've all seen it from these mega nonprofits. That could be you. You just have to look at it in a different way. So I definitely want to give you the opportunity to come on up and raise your hand. And if we get some folks who are, let's see here, we've got a couple of people here. So before we bring some folks up, I just want to again reiterate, I'm looking for current nonprofit founders. So if you are a nonprofit founder and you are based in the US, so with Pitch Your Nonprofit Show, as you know, if you go to pitchyournonprofit.com, we have the form for you to apply to pitch. And because of our funding restrictions, we only fund in the US. So that's where we are with that. that's where the sharks tell me. So that's where we are with that. So any US based nonprofits that want to come up and get some questions answered, I am happy to do that and really happy to step out there with you and really workshop with you in that capacity, which is so different from Pitch Your Nonprofit Show. And one of the things as to why I absolutely love doing these pop-ups, and I have a couple of people raising their hands. So, hey, if you're going to jump up here, let's see here. Let's see if it's going to let you come up. Okay, there you are. There you are. I don't, Michael. Welcome, Michael. Welcome to the stage.
Hey, how you doing, Liberty?
I'm doing great, Michael. Doing great. What's going on? You're a nonprofit founder, are you?
Yes, I am. I'm out of Philadelphia.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to go ahead and fill us in. I in the nonprofit on the pop-up, I don't like to say go ahead and kick off your pitch because that's intimidating and we're not here for that. That's why I'm saying I'm gonna say tell us about your organization and then what the challenges that you're having so we can dive in and help you.
Yes. My organization is, if anyone doesn't know, even Philadelphia is one of the poorest, largest, um, is the poorest of the largest cities in the United States of America. And our organization has been serving what is deemed as the homeless or unhoused population since 2017. And we have been able to make some strides within going from like 6,000 to 13,000 to 30,000 in individual donors per year. But the reason why I decided to take advantage of this opportunity this year, today, is because I was wondering if you had any ideas that could help us kind of increase that funding so that we can do some of the other things that we want to do here in the Philadelphia area.
Well, first off, Michael, thank you for being succinct in getting to your question. So shout out to you for that. Couple of things that I want to follow up with. What's the name of your organization, Michael?
It is called Kingdom Keepers Outreach Ministries.
Kingdom Keepers Outreach Ministries. Okay, the Kingdom Keepers. Perfect. And thank you for bringing that awareness as far as Philadelphia. I'm definitely aware of what's going on in Philadelphia. So what you're doing right now is you're tackling the homeless population. Tell me right now how you're serving a couple of things. I want to know how you're identifying your clients or customers. How are you identifying them now? And what is the transformation that you offer them? How are you serving them?
Okay, so how I identify them is two ways. A few different ways. Of course, there's a race demographic. Also, there's an age demographic, and then some of them actually live on the street, and some of them are in shelters. Shelter facilities. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a safe house or even in transitional housing, as far as rapid rehousing. But even though they are sheltered, they still can't afford things like food always, things like personal hygiene products and clothing. And those are some of the things that my organization is providing them. And so we provide them physical needs, and with those physical needs, it also serves a mental, psychological, and emotional wellness as well. Because just with personal hygiene products, it helps improve mental health. So those are the things that we do, and what we have noticed that the areas of health that it improves. So that's the impact.
Well, Michael, I'm glad you clarified that for me, because initially when you said that you were targeting and working with homeless, the first thing that I thought, and this is great that we're going back and forth on this, I thought you were providing them the transformation to housing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? When you say
that's the end game.
Okay. Okay.
This is where we're starting.
Okay. So right now, your audience or customer base or the people that you're helping, they are homeless, and you are providing the necessities that they need.
Yes, necessities.
Okay. So you're providing like basic life necessities that they need while they're in that space, and that's where your organization lives. Do you partner with the not shelters, because if you're a nonprofit who focuses on housing, then you're trying to solve the housing issue. What is your relationship to that? You said that's in the future. What's your relationship to that?
So in my relationship with that is that around in California, if you're following the issue there, one of the things they have is tiny homes, villages. So our hope is to be able to have our own community of tiny homes, to where as though that these people these customers, as you were calling, that we've been providing necessities to, that we can also provide housing to them as well.
Okay, exactly. So thank you for that as well. So we have a couple of things here. One thing is identifying your positioning, your pitch, but actually before we get into that, what's the ultimate goal? Because I know you said your initial goal is you want to raise funding or increase funding for which side? For the housing solution or for the necessities?
Actually, if all three phases, right? Mm-hmm. So the necessities, I would like, because if I had more money for necessities, mm-hmm. we can essentially help more people, mm-hmm. or we can operate more frequently, right? And then the second phase of what the funding would help would be a mobile shower trailer. Mm-hmm. And then the third component would be that tiny home.
The tiny home. The reason I'm asking it is all these three separate phases, when you think about it, and you're a nonprofit, all of these three separate phases are actually three separate nonprofits. They're three separate nonprofit sectors, because you have nonprofits who specifically focus on necessities, right? That turns it into an opportunity for people to give goods, where you're saying, please come and drop off toiletries, or please come and drop off something, or come volunteer time to help distribute these necessities. That's one specific nonprofit. And then the other one, we've all seen the mobile shower nonprofits, where the mobile homes are like mobile showers are partnerships with hotels type of thing, where we've seen that as well. And then the third which is the one that I thought you were doing. The third, and we've had a number of those organizations on Pitch Your Nonprofit Show where they have tiny houses, where they build tiny homes, or they help you through the process to become a homeowner, and that's what their nonprofit does. So those are three separate things for it. But as far as what you're looking to do right now and the phase that you're right now, you're looking at the necessities. I think having your long goal, your long tail goal in mind is actually, it could actually help you get the necessities that you need. Let me hear more about your fundraising efforts as it is right now. What have you done so far to raise funds?
Okay, so basically, so far to raise funds, there's been some self funding, and we have about 100+ individual donors who donate to help us raise 30,000 in the last 2 years, and then we were able to acquire one grant from the Phillies Charity Organization in 2020. So most of our funding comes from
Individuals. And
individuals.
how did you attract the individual contributors? What did you do?
So the reason why I jumped on the stage is because I've been good within my warm market. I'm struggling with reaching my cold market. I was able to kind of get some cold market in 2020, at the end of 2021, just due to some news coverage. But I was hoping that, to be able to build off of that, and that's been my struggle in 2021, is building that, is being able to tap into that cold market.
So, okay. So one thing that I'm curious about is the reason I'm asking, like, what did you do, like something specific or tangible, to kind of see like where you doing drives, are like what actually are you,
Yeah.
are you doing?
Yes.
I like the news coverage sign.
Yeah. We always are doing drives to get donations. One of the things that we host a bot, like a community market, every second and fourth Saturday, so people can bring donations like hygiene items and things of that nature down to the market. And what we're finding out is that instead of people bringing in physical items, people actually donate money.
Okay. Yeah, so that goes into what I was getting at earlier as far as where you are in the stage, because again, these are three separate nonprofits, and where you are in the stage. The first one would be, like I said, I could see people coming and bringing things to support you if you're walking around as you're positioning and pitch saying that you provide necessities. That's why I was saying, like, what exactly are you doing and how are you positioning it? And if we tweak that a little bit, we could get you to what your overall goal is. It sounds like your overall goal is the tiny home community, and to really impact homelessness by transitioning out of it, rather than what I like to call planting a flower. Like planting a flower in a terrible situation. So,
Yes.
right? Does that kind of resonate to what you're?
Yes. I want to be able to offer them a full-time community.
Okay,
Basically,
perfect.
that's what I want to offer. Because we're kind of doing, like, by providing necessities, we're doing it part-time. But by able to provide them an actual home, we're able to do it full-time.
Well, I wouldn't even say that. I wouldn't say by providing necessities, we're providing part-time like housing or care. There's two separate things. So I'm saying this to say specifically, if you're going on a fundraising effort or a pitch positioning, you can target specific people that want to solve homelessness.
Okay.
And so if they want to solve homelessness, we don't want to talk about the necessities, because that doesn't solve homelessness. So it's identifying that, and that's why I'm just kind of diving deeper in here, because we got to clear that message up and clear any confusion, because that'll help us target who we need to target. So in the event that we're looking at, let's go ahead and focus on this tiny home community for the local Philadelphians. What do you call? Is it Philadelphians, or what do you call it?
We call them. I call them Philadelphians. Yes.
Okay, because I've never heard it, but I just said that. So.
No, I just remember writing my first letter of inquiry, and I definitely said Philadelphia.
Philadelphians. Yeah. So I say that to say, if we're targeting and solving homelessness, then we want to find people and foundations, companies who want to solve homelessness, right?
Okay.
So what we do, let's go down that path for a second, and then we can get to necessities, and then we'll get to you, Sandy. Thank you so much for being patient. So let's say we want to solve homelessness. What are the things that we need to do that with our tiny house community? We need people to believe in our tiny house community, right? Like that's the first step. We need people to
Right.
understand our tiny house community, understand what it does, and we will start working on more of a vision for it, because once we have clarity, we won't create messaging surrounding necessities. All of our messaging will surround homes, houses, and community. And in that realm, you can start looking at big dollars, because I know you mentioned like 3,000 or 6,000 or something that you were scaling up earlier. And I'm giving you a real example. When I say real, I mean I was just talking to the person who's doing the fundraising on this particular project in Austin. It's a tiny home community for homeless people. Like I what it's a this is a real example that you can do. And I had no idea, just for everybody here, that he's going to come up here and talk about this tiny home community in Philadelphia. But the number one thing, and I'll just give you a couple of pointers that you can do before we move on to Sandy, is you start building some collateral, some actual materials around your vision. Because it sounds like that's where you want to end up, but that's not where you are. And once we segmented this conversation and went into, let's just talk about that part versus the necessities. Now we have a foundation. Let's start from here, because from this point we can get home builders involved, we can get tech companies involved because they want to do major things, we can get property tech involved, we can get so many people believing in this community when we surround it with a vision, when we surround it and support it with data as to what is this going to solve. What's the name of your tiny home community that you want to build?
Kingdom Keepers Village.
Okay, let's say Kingdom Keepers Village. Let's just, say that's the name of it. Now we have a name. Now we have something that people can strive for and connect with and build on, versus asking people for necessities. So I would start with building that. Do you have a pitch deck for Kingdom Keepers Village?
Not yet, but that's something that I need to work on, obviously.
Yes, that is definitely something that you need to work on, and start with that, as in you don't have to aim for perfection for it at all. Get your ideas down as to what you want to do, and a couple of things to think about. Think about the number of people that you will serve. How will this work? How will this run? Where's the location of it? How many of the tiny houses will be there? What's the budget of it? What do you need? Once you find out the location, what are the city requirements? Some cities require that you have special licensing to do tiny houses. So I say all that to say, if that's your ultimate goal, work on the ultimate goal and work on that so that you can build up relationships, because it sounds like you have the fun, because people are more willing to drop off supplies and toiletries to do that. We see that every day, all day, but we don't see a lot of tiny home communities that solve homelessness. If you want to solve hygiene, there's a lot of nonprofits for that, but if you want to solve homelessness, you need to start working on your pitch deck, start working on your messaging, start working on your positioning, and start building your partners. And that's going to help you do that. Okay, Michael?
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you so much.
you're welcome. And Miss Sandy, welcome. I think you might be on mute, Miss Sandy.
There you go. Liberty, thank you. I have heard about your room, and I've been wanting to get in here forever, and I was so glad to see you come up. So thank you for bringing me up to the stage. I really appreciate
Oh,
it.
thank you so much. I love that. I really appreciate that. What tell me about your nonprofit.
You bet. So I was a school counselor for 21 years, and then in 10 years, a teacher 10 years before that. But I ended up being one of the most involved counselors of the Columbine tragedy because I had student taught there 17 years earlier, and I was back in the district as a counselor. And then 2 years after Columbine, at my own school, we had 4 suicides in 8 months. And so what happened was, I started a club called the Bionic Team, which stands for Believe It or Not, I Care, to empower kids to reach out to their peers that were new, sick, bullied, or had lost loved ones, because those were the reasons why the guys had, and they were all males, shot up Columbine or took their lives. And so what we do is we reach out through targeted outreaches to let those kids know they're seen, they matter, and people care. And so I did it. I ran it in 2 different schools for 14 years. I had over 1,000 kids on my Bionic teams, and they reached out to over 140,000 peers, school staff, families, and community members, and just was incredible. And so 4 years ago, I started it as a nonprofit. As everyone was saying, Sandy, you gotta get it out there and get it into more schools. And so that's what I did. During COVID, it was we had several grants before COVID, but then during COVID, all the grant funders changed their priorities to food, housing, or medical, and so we didn't get any grants for 18 months, and so we tried a benefit concert last fall. Christy Buss, whose family owns the LA Lakers, she was trying to help us get a benefit concert going. She knows a rapper called OG Suicide, and we were trying to get a concert, but it was just difficult. And so we tried to have a concert this spring, and it was difficult again. We had the whole thing set up. We were going virtual, and we only raised $2,500. And then we tried to do some things with our alumni, with those 1,000 alumni that have been a part of Bionic through the years. And so it's been tough. We have over 2,300 schools around the world that are inquiring about starting Bionic teams. And the problem is now that we're seeing is a lot of those schools don't have the money. I don't know if you've heard that so many people are leaving the public schools to do homeschooling or online schooling. It's just, we're in such a crisis right now. And so anyway, it's been difficult. What I found is during COVID, especially the last 6 months, as kids regressed from COVID, some, like say 8th graders are acting like 6th graders in their social skills. We just saw so much more bullying. And so what I did this in the last couple months, I created a parent bully prevention course to help parents talk to their kids about bullying, and if their kids are bullied, how to help them recover as quickly as possible, and then hopefully to help those parents prevent bullying in their communities, get their churches involved, get their youth leagues, get everyone involved. After the Uvalde shooting, again, I was one of the most involved counselors at Columbine and 3 other school shootings, and I was interviewed by Good Morning America on the shooting and that type of thing. But we saw after Uvalde just a mass exodus out of the schools. So many people were saying, if the police are going to stand around and not do anything, I'm pulling my kids out. And so it's just interesting. Before that, everyone was saying, well, the police are going to watch out for us. And I understand that it was a rural community, and, I don't want to go off on all that. But so everyone is hurting. The kids are hurting, the parents, the educators, all our society. Every single person, no matter business owners, whoever, we're all hurting. And so, but now with the school year starting, I'm really concerned about increased bullying, suicides, and more school shootings. And so Bionic is needed more than ever. And we have a proven program in schools, elementary through college, and so I'm just really needing to find some funding out there. We have a lot of schools. Yeah, there was a lot of funding that's come to the schools, but the problem is now with the teacher shortage and everything, the schools are ending up putting a lot of that toward substitute teachers, toward trying to recruit teachers, a lot of other things. So schools are saying we don't have money for the $400 it costs to start a Bionic team. So anyway, Liberty, my heart is heavy with, I was just at an elementary school today and seeing those kids going to school and the parents, and it's just a fun time for them, but our kids are going to be hurting again. And so that's what we do. So thank you for listening patiently.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I wanted to go ahead and give you that space, and I appreciate you for providing all of the details that you did, because one, it's so important. It's extremely important to talk about bullying and how we can solve this. So I have a couple of questions for you, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing. So my first question for you is, you mentioned in your talk here that the schools don't have the funding. Where are the places that you're looking for funding? Because you mentioned you mentioned directly from the schools, and you mentioned grants. What other sources have you explored?
You bet. So, trying to go to businesses. I just contacted a business a couple weeks ago. I'm a member of the West Chamber of Commerce around here locally, and trying to get some of those businesses to see if they would sponsor schools, if they would donate. Just got a business to say they're going to give us $5,000, so that'll help us. But so I'm looking for that. I'm looking for our alumni, looking for parents, but again, the parents are struggling, and what I'd rather ask from the parents is for them to take that $49 bully prevention course. That's the best way that we can support those parents. So,
So with
so
the
looking for.
okay, so with the business, is that something that you just started doing as far as reaching out to businesses? Because it sounds like you've been reaching out to school districts or independent school districts. Is the business side something that you're just now exploring, or what's been the experience in the past?
Yes, we're just starting that. In the last 3 months, we've been saying we need to start reaching out to the businesses.
Yeah,
That's
because
where
that's
I
what I
joined
was going
the
to tell you. Because I
great.
listening to you and listening to your story, obviously I want to give you space to go ahead and get that out. But the number one thing that I was going to tell you is stop asking the school districts for money and stop asking the parents. I was gonna
Yes.
say, please, Sandy, stop asking these people for money, because the only thing they're gonna say is, I don't have it. And we don't
Yes.
need that. We don't need a I don't have it. We
No.
don't. No, so
No.
we need a solution. That's what we need. We need a solution. And as I teach on Pitch Your Nonprofit Show, and as I teach, and I have a nonprofit accelerator for nonprofit founders, it's called Accelerated, and we meet once a month. But when I'm teaching in that particular space, we focus specifically on, and I said this earlier, on how to get funding that has nothing to do with grants, and what that looks like for most nonprofits, and especially for yours. I'm super excited about your organization. What that looks like is what is called sponsorship and what is called partnerships. And it's called strategic business development for partnerships and sponsorships, and that has nothing to do with grants. And one thing that I find for majority of nonprofits, and I mentioned this earlier, a lot of nonprofits run their business like a nonprofit, when you have to run your business like a business. So you have a business. Your tax election is a 501c3, but you have a
Yes.
business. So we
Yes.
have to start thinking of yourself as a business. And when you are a business has two options. You have products or services. You can provide and create different products and services for your business, for your nonprofit. So let's look at what that looks like for you. For you, you are expert. I'm taking it. You're an expert in this field. You can provide different products and services such as speaking opportunities, talks, lectures, and work in that component. You can provide different virtual online courses, even with the one that you have right now for parenting for against bullying and a solution for bullying. There's different workshops and programs that the school will pay you to come in to teach. And that's an entire, and like that's different from, I'm a nonprofit. They pay people to come in to give these talks, and they pay
Yes.
people to come in to do these workshops. The thing that I would do for you and suggest for you is to switch your language.
Ah.
Because when you switch your language and use this is a major tip here. This is a major tip for anyone in nonprofit space or anyone in the business space at all. The major kind of gem is you have to use the language that they use when they write a check. Always think about that. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do or how you're trying to do it. What do people in position pay for? That's their number one question you should always ask yourself. Oh, they don't pay for anti-bullying, but they do pay for workshops for team building and like figure out what it is that they pay for. And that way you create something that aligns with what they have a budget to do.
Wow.
And yeah, it's mind-blowing. And I always use the example of I speak when people say, "How many languages do you speak?" I say, "I speak LinkedIn." And if you get it, you get it. It's like the people on LinkedIn, they're cutting checks. They have a certain way that they cut it. And whenever I'm describing kind of heartfelt, think of it as B2B and B2C language. So when I'm speaking B2B language, I'm always speaking LinkedIn because that's what's going to cut the check. If I'm speaking B2C, I'm going to talk about all the emotional feels. I'm going to do all of that because that's what I would say on Instagram. Like that's my Instagram language. But in your situation, that's the number one thing that I would say to you is let's find out what they are. We got a couple of things here that we can do. We're finding out what are they cutting checks for? What are they paying for? Then you're going to create something that matches that identically. That identically matches that and get the check cut. 2, you are going to target businesses and you're going to break that down into 2 separate parts. You're going to target business partnerships and business sponsorships. Those are 2 separate things. And you're also not going to stay with local businesses because the reason you're not going to, let me just break this down. The reason that you're not staying with local businesses is because you're not solving a local problem.
Oh, good. Wow, you're amazing.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. You're not solving a local problem. You're solving a national crisis because this is a national crisis. When that situation happened, my entire, not just moment of me finding out, I was broken. I couldn't believe it. And I'm still getting chills. And maybe it's because I'm in Austin and it's not that far from me. But it was, I just remember where I was, like I'm standing here at the HEB, like that's a store. I'm in the store and I'm getting on, my phone is going crazy. And my heart was just, oh my God, it was just broken. And so I say that to say, you aren't solving a local issue. So we don't even have to work with local businesses. We're solving national issues and we're focusing on the oh my God, you have the suicide, like you got a lot in your story. So I say, yeah. And it seems like you've been able to really cultivate your story and present it well, where you've been featured in different outlets. So I would say, again, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but your topic just really hits me because I just remember that moment of getting all of these messages, and it's very scary. And for some, like, I don't have a dog in this race, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Everyone felt that pain and everyone can relate. And so, yeah, and I'll pause right there. I want to leave space for if someone else wants to come up before we jump off, but I want to just recap and say and encourage. Well, first, I want to encourage you to continue to do what you're doing because you're doing amazing work and you're doing work that is needed. And it's so funny. Side note, it's so funny because there was a fundraiser tonight, actually, in Austin with what's her name? Kendra Scott? Is that it? Is that the jewelry lady? I'm not sure. And I just know she's a huge deal. A huge deal. And she's partnered with a bullying nonprofit tonight. And she's bringing out, because I got a notification from a friend of mine who's a huge heavy hitter VC guy in Silicon Valley who is in Austin currently. And they're like, oh, come out. We're going to be hanging out here at this event. And I thought, why aren't all nonprofits bringing out their heavy hitter friends to promote for them? Like, that would be a good idea. Why isn't everybody doing this? And it was a very small, because I went over the scan and looked at the nonprofit, and I'm like, oh, this is a very small organization. Okay, they must have a connection to really support this organization. And it was anti-bullying. And I thought, oh, I immediately remember thinking that's such a good cause. It's such a good thing, because it's going to school now isn't the same as it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 20. People before, you could move if someone was bullying you. Now you can't even move.
No.
Oh my God.
Right.
So when I tell you, like, I understand your organization, and it's terrifying, because when I have seen adults, and it's one in particular that it's a woman who's a television host and coming from the same background as myself, and in Australia, and to see that she ended her life because of online bullying and cyberbullying. And I was just like, oh, beautiful woman. And it's one thing to say turn the comments off, but I think people don't really think how that can really just really get to you emotionally and really wear you down. And when I see things like this take place with 9-year-olds and 5-year-olds, just all these little people, and it just blows my mind. So I just want to say that I hear you. I get you. I see these stories. And as a person coming from the tech space, as much as I love technology, like, my entire life is centered around technology. I just think it's the best. But I also see where technology, it makes your world smaller, puts everybody at your fingertips. But when it's used in a negative way, what I mean, bullying and cyber crimes that perpetuates bullying, it is detrimental to your health, just your society at large. But definitely it leads to, unfortunately, many people taking their lives. And if there's an opportunity to prevent that, I support that 1,005%. So yeah, that's my plan for you. And hopefully those things that I outlined really resonates with you and helps you. I want you to reframe your thoughts here. We're not solving anything local. We're solving a national crisis. We're looking at larger companies. We don't have to look at local companies. We're looking at business partnerships. We're looking at business sponsorships, and we're going to go with that. How's that, Sandy?
Oh, that's incredible. I'm a slow writer. I was writing as fast as I could, so hopefully I can decipher my notes.
Oh, you know what, Sandy? Good for you. We've got the replay on. So go ahead and come back later tonight, when you're just in there, just hanging out and eating your little food. Just hit play.
I love it. Oh, liberty bless you. And people have said, because I've been on some of the VC pitches, they say we don't work with nonprofits, and I thought, so they said go to Liberty. So people are talking about you, girl. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you so much, Miss Sandy. And we're gonna bring. Let's see, we got a couple of people here. And again, I want to apologize, guys. I know that the pop-up is for an hour, so I'm going to try to go a little faster. The organizations that have been up so far have just been so phenomenal. And again, just as we're introducing everyone back to this space, I'm Liberty Madison, host of Pitch Your Nonprofit Show. And Pitch Your Nonprofit Show is the #1 nonprofit show on Clubhouse. And what we do is we teach nonprofit founders how to pitch like tech founders, and we also fund them. We have funded nonprofit founders with over $250,000 directly from the Pitch Your Nonprofit stage. Yes, I know, it's unbelievable. And as you just heard Sandy say, we're the only people in right over here helping nonprofit founders. And I'm very, very passionate about that, because I come from the tech space. I don't have a nonprofit, but I have identified so many tactics that nonprofits founders are leaving on the table that you can utilize and you can actually execute on like a tech founder and do that. So it's been amazing, and I want to encourage you to hit that little greenhouse at the top to make sure you stay connected to everything that comes out of the Nonprofit Founders Club. And also feel free to follow Pitch Your Nonprofit on Instagram. And also I want to invite you guys, I don't think I've done that yet. I want to invite you, I do have a group coaching and consulting program, and it is called Accelerated, and it's just for nonprofit founders. It's a very, very small group. It's a small group. We get together once a month, and it's an opportunity for you to have, if you can kind of think of a CMO to go in your back pocket, where you can come in with all of your questions and say, what should I do? What's the strategy here? How do I attack this? What does it look like? And it's really designed for me to give back to the nonprofit space, where it's not an extreme amount to join. It's definitely not, but it's really for grassroots organizations who are out here doing the work. And I wanted to create that space where you can come together. We meet every second Wednesday of the month, and 2 hours to just roll up your sleeve and talk about your specific organization and really transform your life. I love it. So I want to welcome, we have time for a couple more people. So let's see who we have here. We have, let's see. As I'm pulling this up and it's allowed me to go over, I'll just briefly introduce you guys to Pitch Your Nonprofit. Again, you can go to pitchyournonprofit.com, apply to pitch. And again, we have same qualifications that I've mentioned before. You have to be a US based nonprofit, and you have to be a current nonprofit founder. And those are the main elements that you need to be in. We have that because of our sharks and funding, and that's really just how it works. So yeah, that's the target. And today for the Pitch Your Nonprofit pop-up, I have to request that you guys be a nonprofit founder. So if you're an aspiring nonprofit founder, again, I salute you, but I'm going to salute you from afar, and I'm going to let nonprofit founders come to the stage. So if you're a US based nonprofit founder, feel free to raise your hand. Let's get this conversation going. All right. Ms. Hayden, are you a nonprofit founder?
I am, yes.
Tell me a bit about your nonprofit, Hayden.
Okay, and I just wanted to say very quickly, because I am a tech girl, I have a small business of myself that's tech based, so I I appreciate you even more on that level. But yes, my nonprofit that started, it is for it's called Healing the Wound Foundation, and we help men and women who have been stuck in toxic relationships bring the focus back onto themselves, and we help with just self-esteem growth to get you out of the situations.
Lord, I tell you, Hayden, that is so needed. I love that you're doing that. Okay, tell us more. How can we help you? What's your challenge, or where are you looking to go, or what's your question?
Okay, so we are a new organization, and I am used to the small business world. Now I am the one that's trying to do all of the public relations and getting donors. So I'm new to this. I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm not doing very well at finding donors or things like that. So I just like any
Okay.
advice.
So okay, let's start here. Tell me more about your organization. Where are you located?
Okay, so it's based out of California, but we are all virtual. And what we offer is at this time, we have 5 weekly groups that we do. We have a men's group, women's group, but we also do a school for them, to where we take them through and we teach them all these tools. And then we also do a boot camp on the weekends, just to help with a little extra attention.
Mm-hmm.
And we offer a lot of support. So
Okay, and so you're based out of California. The courses are all virtual. Do you have in-person components, or is it all virtual?
it's all virtual.
Okay. And what is the transformation that you offer for your clients, our customers, or the people that you're serving?
Well, the transformation, basically, what I have been saying is, you don't often find somebody that's been in a toxic relationship for 40 years able to get out and move on with their lives. And that's absolutely what we've done. That's, one of our first people that we did through the school was 40 years stuck in a relationship and was able to get herself out and move on with her life. So we're really investing in each person and trying to help them build themselves back up. Does that answer that?
Well, you know what? It does give me insight as to what you do. One thing that I definitely would love to do, I want to invite you to apply for Accelerated. That way you can get some support monthly, once a month, to inside of a dynamic coaching and consulting program. And the reason that I say that is you definitely could use some support on your messaging and
Yes.
your contribution as to how your nonprofit is transforming lives. Because one thing, and that's what we do on Pitch Your Nonprofit Show. I know this is Pitch Your Nonprofit Pop Up, so I'm not trying to be like, oh, well, you should have had it done. But one thing at Pitch Your Nonprofit Show is people come prepared with their pitch framework, with what they're doing, what their transformation is like. It's the Shark Tank for nonprofits. They're ready to go. And because you're doing such powerful work, I want to see you in a space where you have those tools and you're leveraging those tools and you're able to communicate it in a way that people instantly get what you do. And when I say instantly, it could be we were talking about Michael's organization earlier and working on pinpointing his message so we can eliminate confusion. Are you providing necessities or housing? Like which one? What are we doing here? How are we transforming this? And we got to the root of like his larger vision and larger goal, which is really cool. So for you, I would definitely, if I were working with you specifically, because we would need time to go through all of your what you've been able to do, but as far as your transformation, that's your powerful positioning. That's where you want to stand out and say, we transform the lives of XYZ, blah, 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 so that they can ABCD. And this is how we're doing it. So your powerful positioning statement tells me quickly, instantly what you do, but it should not include things of an example, because that example is sure down the line, but your powerful positioning statement, that's what's going to draw people in to help you attract those. I know you mentioned before you're looking to attract contributors and you're looking to attract people who can support your organization financially, right?
Right.
And the first thing that you want to do in order to attract them is to make sure you have the right messaging, because you want to make sure
Right.
that you're not confusing them or losing them. Because when you don't have the right messaging, you confuse or you lose. For example, with the housing that we talked about, once we have the right messaging and we understand what we're doing, we're targeting a whole different audience now. We're targeting a whole different base. So I'd say I definitely say that in that realm. So first, I'll land with, let's work on your messaging and how you communicate your nonprofit, and that can help you identify the people that you want to reach. So how long have you had your organization?
We filed for the 501c3 January 16th.
Okay, so you've had your organization over 8 months. So you've had your organization for 8 months. Okay.
Yes, we were doing it before, but we didn't
Mhm.
decide to just go ahead and go full steam nonprofit until then.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's not a problem. You could have literally said we had our nonprofit for 30 days. It doesn't matter. I was just curious how long you had it. The fact that because I find that most times when people have a nonprofit, they've been doing the work before they got the 501c3. So even if you said we just had it for the past 3 weeks, I'm sure you'd been doing the work for 3 years. So like that doesn't matter. But as far as what you're doing in to raise funds, I would definitely want to kind of dive deeper as to how can you get in person opportunities, and how can you look into your model and get it, yeah, how can you get in-person opportunities? I know it's all virtual right now. I think virtual should be a component of what you do, but when you have in-person opportunities, it gives people the opportunity to see what you're doing and kind of touch and feel it, and it gives them the opportunity to really want to be a part of it and invest in it. Have you ever had a physical component, or has it always been online?
It's always been online, but I do so much better in person. Like I said, I have a small business that I've
Mhm.
built from the ground up, and so I
Okay.
thrive in that area. So this is very different, and I feel unorganized on my end. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, let's do this. Let's start off with a list of how you can it's kind of like we're working backwards. Everybody's trying to transition online and you're like trying to pull that and go the opposite direction. But let's play into, you said a couple of things that stood out. Let's play into your strengths. Your strengths is you communicate well. You communicate well in person. You just said that. You're like, I'm much better in person. Well, I want you to shine where you shine. So what that means is write out a list of 5 things that you could not that you have to do all 5 in execution, but all 5 in theory. Write out a list of 5 things that you could see that would overlap or tie into your event. Could it look like a opportunity for self-esteem building or team building, or what could that look like for a workshop? So come up with different things. It doesn't have to be a workshop. That was just one idea, but come up with different things that you can do. And that can help you start pinpointing where the money is to help support what you're doing. If that makes sense.
Yes, that's great.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hayden. And definitely feel free to reach out to me. You have my Instagram. You can also reach out to me in DM here. And you can also reach out to me at libertymadison.com and also PitchYourNonProfit.com. I definitely would love to see you a part of the accelerator, but also I think that it would be great to find out what you did. What I'm excited to see, like what 5 things you come up with. So definitely feel free to reach out to me because people always ask for updates on what happens with Pitch Your Nonprofit Pop-Up. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Hayden. And we have Miss Suzanne. Welcome. Tell us about your nonprofit.
Thank you so much. I came across your room by accident, but a pleasant one. My nonprofit, I have been a registered nurse for almost 40 years, working primarily pediatric oncology and bone marrow transplant, hospice for kids and whatnot. And while being in the hospital, I recognize a huge need here in Seattle because we have 5 states around us with no children's hospitals. So we have kids that come here for long periods of time. They're in the hospital for a long period of time. So in 2014, after 18 years of saying somebody should do something, I realized that somebody was me. And so I founded a nonprofit called Ladybug House. And Ladybug House is a 501c3 nonprofit. We're working to build and operate Washington State's first brick and mortar freestanding family-centered palliative care and hospice home for children, adolescents, and young adults. So meeting the needs of that age group. While working towards this long-term goal, we have 5 different outreach programs. One is helping families with cafeteria support because most hospitals don't feed families. We have bereavement and funeral and hospice, in that area. We have an annual program where we take kids' drawings and we turn them into a personalized stuffed animal. That's a big program for us. We help with other things like transportation and Christmas and holiday support. But in the meantime, our primary goal is to create legislation because that doesn't exist either for children's hospice in our country. There are only 3 freestanding hospices in the country, specifically for kids. And so when I took this on, I didn't know all of that. So it's creating respite, it's creating reimbursement, and it's a whole lot of other things that sometimes I get so tired. I think, what am I trying to do? This is why no one's ever done it before, but that's Ladybug House. Pediatric palliative care and hospice support, and trying to give these families who are doing care every single day or taking care of their dying children at home when they should be just loving on them and trying to give them the support and the breaks that they need to exist and go on. But that's it.
Thank you so much for your work. Oh my gosh. That was just, I know that it's got to be difficult for you to execute on that day after day because it was difficult to hear and difficult to just resonate with that.
That's my problem. Nobody wants to hear it.
Oh,
even
no.
in the hospice world, when I go to adult hospice conferences, which I stopped going to, all of a sudden they're like avoiding me and everything. And it's not because I talk so much and I'm just, overly out there, but it's because, they said at one meeting, they said, well, even we don't want to think about children dying. But it's not the death part, it's the life part. How do we allow these children to have full quality life and have death that isn't going to penetrate their parents so much that they stop living themselves? But that's the problem. There are no grants, there's no
Wow. Wow, Susan.
Because I'm at a point where every day I ask God why he, like, why? And so I found Clubhouse, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to talk to people about it, and there'll be a lot of people that's going to turn off and
Well,
shut
let
down.
me give you, I want to respond to what you said, and I really appreciate you sharing that information and educating us, because we'll have more people on the replays and they'll be able to hear about this specific industry, this specific area that even the adult hospice care workers don't necessarily want to engage in. And my first thought for you, as soon as you said, that's my challenge and no one wants to hear it, and how do I really communicate what I'm doing? Well, actually, I'm going to drop a pin right there. The first thing that I want to say is I really like the name Ladybug House. I think that is just such an amazing name. I love the work that you're doing. And when I thought of the Ladybug House, what's your website for Ladybug House?
It's ladybughouse.org.
Okay, I want to check out your website.
And again, we're all volunteer run. Everything that has been done, from lawyers to everything that I have managed to get donated. Our website is about 2.5 years since it's been updated, because I need to find a volunteer for Squarespace.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking here. Great job on your website. Okay, perfect. And all right, so I'm looking around here and listening to you as well. And a couple of key points and a couple of pain points that I heard you say was, one, no one really likes to think about end of life care for a child. That's basically what you said. And I understand, excuse me, I understand that because no one does. No one likes to think about that. So why don't we flip it? Why don't we flip that to celebrating the life of a child? Have you tried to do that?
Right. One of our taglines actually celebrate every day.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out. Can you say that again?
And one of our taglines is celebrate every day.
Okay.
You know.
Oh, okay.
So we've tried we do the
go ahead.
positives, and we show the positives, because that's what it really is about. Because the reality is that even when children are dying, their families often don't accept that they're dying. So even though if a family goes home, and the doctor says there's nothing else we can do, in the parent's head that does not mean death. It just means there's nothing they can do. So we try really hard to use language that is around positive.
Okay. And I completely get that. So the first thing that I would say is, let's talk about what your goal is. So what is your goal? Because I want to make sure that I answer your question and really target your goal.
Yeah, our goal is to build a 12-family suite home that will have 2 immediate hospice rooms, always on call for families, and then to have 10 respite rooms. And these rooms, if you imagine going to grandma's house, but these families don't get a break. So they can come with their child, or they can send their child alone, and they can have like 30-day passport a year where they, if mom's got to go for a dental surgery and her child's at home on a ventilator, instead of putting them in the hospital, they can come to Ladybug House where they'll get loved on by, baking cookies and doing all those things that you would normally do. The siblings will get loved on because often they're left out to the side. If and when a child dies, even if it died in the hospital, it could come to Ladybug House with the family, and they don't have just 2 hours in a room and have to get out. We will be there to help guide this family through the process, including letting them stay there afterwards for a period of time while we help them get ready to go home without their loved one. So
okay.
It's rest and support, and actually building a community that doesn't exist for these people. Because even if your child is sick, say with cancer or mitochondria or cystic fibrosis, whatever, you have a community. And you have a community while everybody's fighting. Then when they take away the hope that your child's not going to survive,
Lord, this is
there are
hard.
some people that will still
Her
hang around because they believe in prayer or whatever that something's going to save this child. And then once a child dies, these families are isolated because nobody wants to imagine that that's the reality of an outcome.
Thank you for sharing that and sharing that journey as to what people are experiencing. I want to make sure that I tackle the immediate goal. So the immediate goal is you want to have kind of like this respite home that provides care and also provides an opportunity and respite for the actual caregivers who are giving the care, but they need to run an errand or they need to go take care of whatever they need to do. But the main thing is you are looking to fund this house and to fund this opportunity. How have you went about funding the house?
We've, I mean, there's little things like I've probably raised close to $1 million over the last 8 years, but then there's things you have to pay for, right? Like office technology, this and that. And so we have some money in the bank, but there are no grants. It's been like a private family foundation through a friend, gave us $50,000. We just had a 16-year-old do a private concert, Indian chantra music, and raise $34,000 for us, which is going to fund one of our programs. But we need the hundreds and millions of dollars, and we have the connections here in Seattle. I have volunteers who are Bill Gates and Bezos photographers. I have people whose family members are on the NBA and NFL. Like, we have connections to connections, but it's trying to get to those connections. Because if people knew, most people have no clue that this is even an issue.
Okay, so that was a lot to that question. So
it's usually it's been personal. It's been talking to people, or it's been me really going out and asking people.
Okay, so with the $1 million that you've raised over the past 8 years, why don't you already have the house, or what's the issue with the house?
The house will cost. We've had landscapers and builders and everybody. It's come down a lot, but it's down. We need probably at least $15 million to build, for the land, for the space.
Okay, so what have you been doing? That's two. Okay, so this helps me with two separate questions. So all of the money that you've raised over the past 8 years, that necessarily wasn't towards the house. That was towards you operating. Yeah, so that wasn't toward the house. So what have you done to raise money for the house?
Just for the house? We have not done. I guess, if you say it, we're still trying to raise enough money every year to just operate.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to, and that was my point. Right. The point is, your organization has been raising money to fund the organization. That was it. Right. It's just the organization. It hasn't been for that particular project. And as you were talking, that's what I took from it. And so thank you for confirming that. So reframing that and having a full understanding in your mind, because this will help you too. You haven't started raising towards the house. You've been raising towards your foundation or your nonprofit. So if you isolate that and start actually raising towards this specific house, that's a game changer. It's a game changer because now you can change your messaging, have visuals that surrounds this house, and make everything about that house. Not about your organization, not about all these different things, just about this particular house with the 12 rooms.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So when you have this particular house with the 12 rooms, and the reason I went to your website is because I wanted to see your logo. And I think your logo could be different. I'm not going to say like it's bad or anything, but I think your logo could be different. But that's another conversation. Okay. But with this being said, raising around the house and focusing, the reason I'm talking about your logo and want to see that, with the right branding and the right messaging, I think you have a winner here. Because people care about these things. They don't know that they care about it because it's something that's hard to hear. But it's only hard to hear because you're in the thick of it and you're working with this day in and day out. Most people aren't. But if you present it in a way that connects with the average person, you don't have to overload them. You don't have to overwhelm them. You don't have to do any of this other stuff that works with your life day to day. But you do have to have the right messaging and the right offer. And people will take it. So I'm going to leave it at that. So focus on specifically creating something targeting this house. work on the logo to make the house really about this ladybug, and start there. And really, that I don't even think that's a starting point. That's your point. That's your end goal. That's your starting point. Let's work on structuring the message around this house around celebrating life of a child. People love that. People love to celebrate the life of a child. That sounds great. We don't need to overload them in the day-to-day jargon or the day-to-day drudgery that could possibly come with this topic. And I say that to say when I work with you or anyone else that's an expert in an area, they tend to overload the general public with their expertise.
Amen.
And
Yes.
that is a huge, huge problem. And I say that because one, that's what I focus on: messaging, getting your pitch together, getting all of these different areas together that can help you communicate well and take out what we don't need. And it comes from television and film. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in film school and television and film, when you're writing copy for commercials, you cannot write above a fourth grade level. You can't. And you don't do that because you're trying to reach the masses. That's where most people's education settles. So when you hear commercials and you hear copy and you hear someone saying, if you have, I'll use a law commercial as an example. When you hear someone, they're not talking about a particular act and code 14845 section B. They're saying, are you hurt? You want us to get them? This is hard. We're tough. Call us. We're the hammer. That's it. You need to have messaging that connects, messaging that doesn't exceed a certain level, and messaging that just gets your point across without the level of expertise that you deem appropriate. Because again, you're in it day in and day out. And we're not trying to reach people who are in it day in and day out. We're trying to reach people who they're in a different profession. They're going about their lives, but they do have funding and they do have a way to show their support and to show their support in a financial way where they can monetarily just kind of step in and support your mission, but you have to give them something to support. And in your situation specifically, we don't want to give them the entire scope of truly what this looks like and what this means, not because we want to hide anything, but just because we already are aware that it's difficult. You already said that. You already said the people already in the industry don't want to hear it because you're talking about kids. So let's flip it and let's focus on a way that's going to engage people, obviously pull their heartstrings and engage them, but engage them in a different way. So hopefully that was helpful for you, Miss Suzanne.
So helpful. So helpful. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking with you again.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Such a pleasure. And thank you to everyone here. And thanks for Sandy for coming up, and Suzanne and Charlotta, Ivan, and you guys hanging out there. Miss Dr. Carlene, we appreciate you guys as well for hanging out in this conversation, and everybody checking it out on the replay. This has been Pitch Your Nonprofit Pop-Up. I love the Pitch Your Nonprofit Pop-Ups, y'all. Like, I think next time I'm going to stream it live. Would y'all like that? I'm going to just stream it live where people can watch it on YouTube. People can watch it on LinkedIn. See, we already talked about them LinkedIn dollars. We need that. Again, Pitch Your Nonprofit Pop-Up is a bit different from Pitch Your Nonprofit Show. Pitch Your Nonprofit Show is the #1 nonprofit show on Clubhouse, where we teach nonprofit founders to pitch like tech founders, and then we fund them. It's just such an amazing opportunity. We bring in sharks. They get funded right there on the stage, and we have funded over $250,000, like real money directly to nonprofit founders. It's an amazing opportunity, amazing show. And Pitch Your Nonprofit Pop-Up is very different because you get an opportunity to talk. And if you've been on Pitch Your Nonprofit Show, you already know how it goes. Once I say hit the stage, you're on and you go right into your pitch. There's no opportunity to get that coaching and consulting and really dive deep into what your organization needs as to where you are and where you're looking to go. And the pop-up really gives us that opportunity to do that. So definitely reach out to me, guys. Would love to invite you to Accelerated. We meet once a month, and it is 2 hours a month. You come in with all of your questions and we deep dive into what you're doing, and you get the support of other nonprofit founders and you can learn from them as well. It's very affordable, and it's my way to work with nonprofit founders who are out there, grassroots, doing the work. And I really want to appreciate you guys for doing the work that you're doing and offer you strategy, expertise, and accountability with helping you get funding in unconventional ways that don't involve grants. Okay, that's where we are right now. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you for coming out, and we shall see you next time. And again, this has been Pitch Your Nonprofit Pop Up. Make sure to follow me. You can just click on my little face there and hit up Instagram and also the Pitch Your Nonprofit Instagram. And you can go to libertymatch.com and feel free to jump on the calendar and let's chat. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. This has been such a pleasure. And I will see you in the next Pitch Your Nonprofit Pop Up. Have a good one. And this room will close in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2. This has been so great, guys. And 1. millions looking for them. That is what building your influence looks like. That's the ROI of influence.